Now this is what I need. That would be sweet to have. Hey lovely people, I'm out here at the Case dealership today. I'm grabbing some brake fluid for the 75C, and we're gonna get to grappling. We're gonna be moving a lot of brush and trees. It's gonna be a good one. It's a beast. The 90C. That is a monster. Wow. Okay, it looks just like my 75C on the inside. It smells a little newer, but everything feels the same. So this thing would be a breeze to learn and to use. I don't need it. I'm not getting it. You know, this is like setting in a new car, maybe a 3500 pickup truck instead of my little 1500, right? But this is sweet. This would definitely do the job. Any job you had, probably. I need to get one of these for the grandkids. Look at this stuff. Nice collectibles. Uh-oh. We made it up here after a fun little trip at the Case dealership, and I got my brake fluid. It's a gorgeous day today. This is hydraulic actuator fluid, brake fluid. This is made, I guess, mainly from mineral oil that is used for the Case IH 75C, aka Big Red. And yeah, it's showing a low brake fluid light, which prompted me to check the fluid. And indeed it is low. This little triangle with the exclamation point lets you know that, hey, you need something done. And this one over here, the circle with the exclamation point, lets you know it's serious, I suppose. And then this little diagram right there in the middle, that is the symbol for low brake fluid. So we're gonna add some fluid to this thing and see if this all goes away. 212.5 hours. All right, so I've climbed up on top of the front wheel to reach over these hydraulics here to find the brake fluid area here, a little reservoir. Pop this lid off, and notice on the lid it says use only mineral oil. So we definitely needed this particular type of fluid. You couldn't just go anywhere and buy brake fluid for this little guy. So let's find the place where you top it off to and make sure we get it up to that level. I think I see the max word right here. Honestly, I can't hardly see. Yeah, there's a little fluid in there, but boy, there's not a whole lot. All right, you know what? I don't know if we need to, but I'm gonna give this a little bit of a shake. A little bit of a toss, not a shake. It's very green looking. Okay. Don't want to overdo it. It ain't gonna take much. Okay, I can see we're getting close. Getting close, a little bit more. I think we're at the max level there. Yeah, I believe that'll do it. Okay. All right, let's jump up in here. Check out this instrument panel. Here we go. Looks good. We got no little yellow triangle, no circle that's red, and we've got our normal symbol right in the middle, which is the battery at 14 volts. We're looking great. All right, we're gonna hook up the grapple. We're gonna get to work. Well, I knew I needed to check the hydraulic fluid, but I really was reminded when I was about to connect the grapple. You know, these types of connects right here, and of course this one, the male fitting, it's got the nipple on the end of it, and I just couldn't get it to go. So I knew there was some pressure on these lines, and look at my shirt and my pants. Yeah, I grabbed a sledgehammer that had a very smooth head on it and tapped pretty good, not too hard, on that nipple, and when I did, it went all over me, and you can see it went all over the place here. So I obviously didn't get the pressure off when I was disconnecting this like I thought I did. I did what I knew to do so, moving the joystick, the rear remotes, just trying to get that pressure drained off of the system. So we've got this Traveler's hydraulic fluid here, universal premium tractor hydraulic fluid, and this is a 5-gallon container. I've already pulled the dipstick out that went in right there, and now we're going to open up the fill lid, and we're going to go ahead and add some in and see if we can get this thing topped off. Hopefully it won't take too much. To do that, I'm going to need to drop this 3-point hitch because it's right over here, right beside this thing. So it just barely misses that. It's a very close proximity. So we're going to drop this down. For those of you who don't know, this is my first tractor. This is the first time I've owned land, and I'm learning as I go on everything. And what I have learned is that these 3-point hitches, these arms are not going to go down easily. They need force, they need gravity, they need weight to go down. And so even though the Case 75C has this little design here out back, if I can turn it around to the right position here, and you can adjust by doing that. You can bring this up incrementally or down. I personally, I've never had one bit of luck with this. And so obviously I adjusted all of my controls in here, these settings, that one over there, and then I put it to neutral. I just couldn't get anything to happen. So what I did is I grabbed a cargo strap. I hooked it under this tongue here, looped it around this, looped it around that, back down to here. I cranked some pressure with the cargo strap. Then I bled my hydraulics again, moved the handles, came out here, and it was down. So first, before I did that, I jumped up on top of it with a foot here and a foot there, bounced up and down, nothing happened. So just so you know, I'm letting you know the good, bad, the ugly. I just didn't show you all that because, well, it's probably a little embarrassing actually. Anybody knows a better way of doing this, please let me know. Now, of course, before I did any of that, I started the tractor. I had the throttle up. I attempted to do things hydraulically. And again, this does not have a hydraulic force downward. It only has a hydraulic upward motion. And so you're only going to go down based on gravity, based on weight. Anyway, let's get some fluid in here and let's get to work. All right, well, it took about 3.5 cups, 3 cups, and it looked pretty full. I added a half more just to make sure it was topped off. I'm gonna let it settle down, then we're gonna stick that dipstick in there one more time and check it and make sure it's good. All right, let's just clean this off real good one more time. It needs to be in between here. Of course, I want it at the top of that. It's probably gonna be a little bit above it, but I leak quite a bit out just connecting, disconnecting fittings. Probably that's where all that 3 cups went. So it's hard to see this stuff on here, but I look at the tip of my finger and now it's wet. So I believe we're good. We're going to check that again. It didn't seem quite as wet this time as it did a minute ago. Yeah, that's good and wet, if you can see that. So it looks like it's good to go. We'll check it every once in a while as we use the loader and make sure, and the 3-point hitch back here, and just make sure it remains full. Okay, let's jump in Little Red here, and we're going to take a ride down here and just look at the scope of work that we're going to try to get accomplished today. So as you can see, when the bulldozer pushed a lot of trees, and it was mainly small trees, but you see a few big things in there, he also pushed a ton, and I mean multiple tons of dirt in here with it. And so, you know, that was not what he tried to do, but it happened. And so you know, it's going to be difficult. Stuff's just growing out of that, and I'm just going to have to get a little bit at a time, and this is not going to be easy. I almost want to burn right here, but I just feel like it's so close to my woods over there that it could potentially be bad, but I don't know. Let's go look at the other piles. So we're around on the other side of the same pile, and there's some pretty large stuff in there. I'm not sure. It's been there about, gosh, going on 3.5 years, I guess now. No, going on 4 years. It's been 4 years since this has been pushed out here. So I don't know, if, you know, how much this might still be decent for firewood. I don't really know. I'm not sure how quickly wood gets down to the point where it's going to rot, but I'd say we probably got an issue there. All right, let's check out this one. Now this one is where I told him to put as many good trees as he could. I picked out the ones that were the best, and there's only about 3 of them right here. And those, there's not any dirt with this. Pretty much he just pushed the trees here. So these are good ones. It might be smart to start here. I'll have to pick them up, do a lot of chainsawing, get them in lengths that I can either use for firewood or lumber. I think it's probably too late for lumber. I don't know. Guys, talk to me. Tell me how long wood can set, how long trees that have fallen, how long can they lay down here, and in what conditions until they're just ruined. All right, here's the third pile that's out here. Again, lots of dirt, lots of small stuff, some big stuff in there, a lot of briars. This one looks like the easiest one to deal with, but it looks maybe a little further away from the woods than that first one we looked at. There's a lot of junk in here. Man, the more I look at this, the more I just want to burn it. What would y'all do? So my conclusion at the moment is these trees are very close to this side of the first pile that we looked at. So I'm probably going to start over here, even though this is just nothing but dirt in here with some sticks and stuff on top of it. I'm going to try to pull off as much as I can of this and maybe just put it on the other side and just try to get it away from these trees a little bit before we burn this. But I believe it's going to burn. I think a future video is going to be an amazing bonfire, a few of them. That's the third one I was at a second ago with y'all, and it's a little close too. I might go on the far side and move some of that stuff over to this side, you know, like we're going to be doing here. You're not gonna believe this. So I come back, you know, you've seen me move the tractor around this whole time and service it, do a few little things. Nothing that would cause an issue. And I come back from showing you around the area down there, and I sit down in my seat, and when I do, I try to start the tractor. I get nothing. So the first thing you do is, of course, you check, you make sure your shuttle shift is in neutral, and it is. You make sure your emergency brakes on. Everything else, you know, should be kind of cool. .2 volts. So making no sound whatsoever, and I've done it about 15 times altogether. I walked away for a few minutes, came back just a moment ago, and I turned the key once, and it actually made a sound like it was going to try to start, but nothing beyond that. So I'm wondering if it's the starter, because the battery's getting juice. It shows that it's charged, but we're getting nothing. Crazy. I've shifted all the gears, I've moved every lever, I've made sure the PTO is off. I don't know what the deal is, y'all. Based on the thumbnail of this video, you will know whether or not we got this thing started. I still don't know yet. So let's I'm gonna keep trying. You'll know in a minute. You hear that sound? Yeah, the tractor started. So this is a few days later. I had to leave that day. What you just saw, I left, and I researched, you know, how to diagnose if I've got a starter issue. how to determine if it's an ignition switch or possibly some sort of safety switch for the clutch or safety switch for neutral, and you know, kind of a refresher on how to use multimeters, because I've never really messed with multimeters. And after watching a lot of videos, digging into the manual, the owner's manual, and locating the relay and the fuse for the starter, I get up here, I put the key in the tractor, and it cranks right up without doing anything. Well, the only thing I did was check the voltage on the battery, and it was a 12.5. And I checked that with the multimeter. I cranked it up with the same key. I even considered bringing another key to see if maybe the key was the issue. And this thing's been running for about 10 to 15 minutes now. I'm about to shut it down and see if it starts back. I was beginning to think it was the ignition switch, because off camera, it actually, I jiggled and kind of pressed down on the switch one time, and I got a little bit of a kick, just like a fraction of a second. And so I could tell the starter got power at that moment. So I was thinking maybe this switch is going bad, and I still don't know for sure. Let's see if it starts back up when I shut it off. Let's see, everything in here looks kind of normal. I see this light here that's on. Not sure what that's representing. That's a warning light. The parking brake's off, of course, but yeah, I still have this light on, and that is concerning right there. That by itself is not really going to tell me anything. Well, I see obviously the battery light's on as well, so maybe this is just trying to tell me that the battery is not quite as full as it needs to be. It should be at least a 12.6. It was 12.48 when I checked it a little while ago. So, you know, I'm just gonna let this thing run a little while longer before I shut her down. See if the alternator, you know, helps build it up a little bit, and maybe those lights will go off. So just now when I said let's let the alternator charge the battery, I started thinking maybe that's what that code means, that the alternator is not charging the battery. And that would explain why after me, not yesterday, but previously, cranking the tractor and, you know, moving it around, hooking up attachments and shutting it off, cranking it again, and doing that a few times, that it could have drained the battery to the point that it just did not want to turn the motor over. So I went to the manual and I found this symbol when it's got a battery beside it on the panel lamp, or DMD. I'm not sure, I guess that's the display. If the warning light fails to go out a few seconds after starting, it means that the alternator is not charging the battery. Have your dealer check the system. So I'm going to look into checking that, and I have a feeling that we are going to shut this thing down. It's not going to want to start because it's draining that battery. I'm going to grab the multimeter, check the battery right now once again, and see where it stands. So on this meter, we got to switch it over to DC voltage 20, because we're below 20, and we're going to put the positive on the positive side, the negative on the negative. It's 12.05 and it was 12.48 a little while ago. So I think we've got an alternator issue. I'm going to take that panel over there off again and see if there's anything visually going on with it. Well, I think that's the alternator over there, and it looks like it's going to be easy to get to. Let's go ahead and shut it down. All right. Now I'm just going to quickly just turn the ignition key back on and see what the display shows for voltage. Normally it'll come up with the battery. It's showing 12.0, 11.8. Yeah, she's going down. Let's see what happens here. Well, it started there, but I just don't think that's going to happen much more often. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to read up a little bit on, or maybe even a video on checking the alternator with the multimeter and see if I can evaluate that real quick. I watched a little short video, and to check an alternator, you crank up your vehicle, the tractor, you put the ground on top of the alternator to ground it out, and then you put your red wire, after you set it to DC voltage, red wire on that incoming line that's coming into it, and you should get, he said, about 14.6 on your gauge, and we got just like 12.8. So that would tell me, if he's accurate, that maybe we've got a alternator that's going bad. I'm going to check it again, watch another video or two, and make sure that that's correct, and I'll let you know. I'm not sure why he's telling me that it should be 14 something when we got a 12-volt battery, you know, and it's registering 12.07. But again, I'll do a little research and we'll figure this out. There is a wealth of knowledge on YouTube. I'm just a guy trying to figure things out. So if you want to figure them out with me or grab at me and tell me what I should be doing, please keep watching. Hopefully this next step that I'm going to perform is something that will help us a lot in determining if it's the alternator. So obviously, after thinking about it and after watching another video, the reason the alternator needs to test out at over 14 volts is because it's got to put juice back into the battery and charge that battery, and it needs to be at around apparently a little over 14 volts to keep that battery charging. And so here's another way that we can test that, not going to the alternator, but hooking up the positive on the positive cable and the negative on the negative on the battery itself. Before we crank it, we'll see it's around 12 volts because it seems to be going down slightly, but I think it built back up to just over 12. And then once we crank, we'll leave it on there, we'll crank the tractor, and then we should see the multimeter go up to the 14 plus range. If it doesn't do that, then the alternator is not sending back enough. And based on that previous test I did on the alternator, it's not doing that. It's not sending back power to charge it appropriately. So we'll just do this one more test to confirm that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and turn this to 20, and we got 12.4, so this thing still seems to be charged well. We're going to see if we can crank it up, and I'm hoping it'll go to 14, but don't think that's going to happen. Let's give it a try. So after a little bit more research, I determined that I really need to check the battery and make sure that when I put a load on it, that it's acting right, or if maybe it's possibly bad with the load. So I went and purchased this battery load and system tester from Harbor Freight. It's a it's a Viking brand, and it wasn't real cheap for Harbor Freight. This one was like 40 bucks. And I'm going to give it a shot and see if this tells us anything. As we know, based on the alternator test, it doesn't look like it's charging enough, but it's possible that when a load's on the battery, it's just pushing it down so far that it makes the alternator look bad when possibly the battery's bad. And in my opinion, you know, this tractor being now 4 years old, the battery going bad makes more sense than this alternator going bad. So I'm kind of hoping that's what it is, and hopefully this will tell us. So we'll figure it out. Some instructions in here, along with the positive cable wrapped up in it. And then you got your negative cable hanging out down there. Looks pretty nice. Looks kind of heavy duty. It's got a little hanger back here on the back where you could hang it. But yeah, it just looks like it'll do the trick. I'm gonna read a little bit about it on in the instructions, and we'll hook it up, see what it shows us. Well, I read the instructions a little bit, and it's important to read those because this device gets very hot, and when you're clicking this little toggle switch, you cannot hold it down for more than 10 seconds during a test. It'll overheat heat and it'll be bad news. And then if you want to do the test again, you need to wait 1 minute in between tests so it'll have a chance to cool down. And I think it said you can only do 3 tests every 5 minutes at the most, so you gotta give this thing time to cool down and catch up. And then it said clean off these connections here just so you get a good bite on it. Now it's got a little hanger on the back, so I've got that hanging right now up here on the hood of the tractor that's raised, so that's cool. Well, I brought it down here and hung it here just so we can get a little bit better view of everything. So this is my negative side over on my right, and over here is positive. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the negative cable and get it nicely on there. Seems to be good. Now let's put the positive on. Okay, wow, battery looks good. I don't know, I don't see a label on this battery that shows how many cranking amps it is, but right now we're up here well into the almost 13 volt range. And let me get these glasses on. If this is telling me the cold cranking amps with this test, I'm well at the top of the line for the 1000, as you might be able to see at the very top up there. If it was in the yellow up there at 1000, if this is a 1000 hour cranking, or sorry, if this is a 1000 cold cranking amp battery, then it, you know, if it's in the green, it's good. If it's over here in the yellow, it's weak. We can check the charging system, which would be the alternator, by starting the tractor and taking it to, I think it said between 15 and 2300 RPM. And we want to check and make sure it looks like it's in the okay position after about, I think it said 15 seconds. Read your manual to be sure about that. And then you can also check the starter. There's a way to do that as well. But yeah, I'm just going to confirm that this is accurate. We're going to put a load test on it now, which is the important thing. That's what we're trying to determine, is where does this go with the load test. And we're not going to hold it more than 10 seconds. So here we go. Well, it went down to, it's still in the green. It's at the beginning of the 1000, and I'm gonna wait a minute, but that took it to about 11 volts. And so I'm not thinking that's horrible. It would have been better if it wasn't quite that low, but it took it down to 11. We'll give it a few more seconds and we'll do it again. There we go. It's almost to the weak spot, but not quite there. I think we're good. Well, we will check now the charging system and see if this shows that the alternator is bad or not. Okay, we're about to do a charging system test, which should tell us if we have a good alternator or not. So what I'm supposed to do is start the vehicle, let it run for a few minutes at idle, and then I'll rev it up to between 1500 and 2000 RPMs, hold it for 15 seconds, and at that point, we want to read the meter. If that needle points toward the red block, then the charging system has undercharged the battery. If the needle points beyond that, beyond the OK block, the charging system's overcharging the battery. And so hopefully it will land right in that OK green block area. It's been running for about 3 or 4 minutes. We're going to get it idling on up there. Okay, so sadly, it looks like it is our alternator. I don't know what's worse, but you might have noticed that we did rev up the engine to about 1750 RPMs. That needle never got in really even into the red. It stayed right there, kind of on the top end of the green. Kind of didn't move at all, which is strange. So it certainly did not get over to the okay area. So it looks like our charging system has an issue. I'm going to tinker around with it just a little bit more and determine for sure if that's the case. I don't know, things just don't seem quite right. You saw though when we put the load on it that it went down, the battery went down to about 11 volts, which I think is probably pretty normal. I will confirm that. I mean, it wasn't in the red. It wasn't in the weak area completely. It was just on the edge of it. That's where 11 volts is. And again, I don't know how many cold cranking amps are on this battery, but this is a gigantic battery. And I would say it probably costs as much as an alternator does. All right. Well, the consensus is it's the alternator. I know that there's probably many of you out there watching this video that knows exactly, probably knew it before I got out of the cab of the tractor the first time this caused an issue. But yeah, I'm just kind of learning as we go. And I tell you, knowledge is power, guys. Anybody who has utilized their brain all their life to fix things, and a lot of times people will fix things out of necessity because they can't just go buy something new. My whole life I was either in the military taking care of jet aircraft, believe it or not, or I was in business for myself taking care of clients and things like that. And when I needed something fixed, you know, it would go off to the shop and it would get fixed. I regret that. I wish I had dove in and just done a lot of this myself. Not just because I find myself in this spot right now where I need to do it. Stand by, phone's ringing, it could be the dealership, I'll let you know. Yeah, they just gave me the number to a fella who rebuilds alternators. So I'm gonna make a call to him real quick and I'm gonna update you as soon as I get off the phone with him. All right, so just talked to the gentleman who rebuilds alternators, and he had me do some testing and try to determine if there was a actual alternator issue or not. And so what he had me do was start the tractor, take my multimeter here, put the ground, the black wire on to the alternator to ground it out, and then take my red and put it on this smaller lead, the smaller wire here. He said I should get a reading. I can't recall how much he said. I think, you know, 12 to 14 volts, 13 to 14 volts. And I got 0. I put it over here on the large one and I got my 12 volts. And so he immediately said, you don't have a bad alternator. You've probably got a blown fuse. Now, that sounds good, right? That hopefully this is a fuse. But what caused the fuse to blow if that's the case? You know what worries me? I've not said this yet in this video, I don't think, but if you watch some of my previous videos, we have had issues with mice getting in this tractor. And one of my big fears, and it always has been, is that they're going to eat through some of this wiring and cause some major problems. So what caused the fuse to blow, if it is a fuse? But he doesn't think that we have an alternator issue. But he told me a little trick, and we're going to try that next. And it should tell us if our alternator is definitely good or not. So we're going to find that out right now. Okay, so here's what he told me to do. He told me to start the tractor, and once I start the tractor, to take a jumper wire, just a piece of wire, and take it and touch from the large to the small connector here on the back of this alternator, the where it connects the wires. Just touch that for a split second. Basically what that's going to do, it sounds like, based on what he's telling me, is that's going to override the fuse that might have potentially been blown, and it will immediately make this alternator kick on and begin to do what it's supposed to do, start charging. I'll then take the multimeter and I will touch that small fitting and just to confirm that it's actually got some output going on. Of course, I'll need to ground the with the black before I touch it. So we're going to start the tractor. We're going to try to touch this to kick it off, and then we're going to check with the multimeter and see if we get any juice coming off this thing. So we took this jumper wire and we touch that fitting and that fitting with this wire, one each end, touching one of those. That apparently bypassed the fuse, kicked this on, and we read 17 volts coming out of this thing, apparently. And so he said, if that happens, we're in good shape. We have a good alternator. We're gonna crank it up, we're gonna jump it again, and then we'll see if we're back up there at 16, 17 volts again. So let's crank it. All right, let's do it again. 14.26. So again, it looks like this is testing great. I can't let go and press hold. I hope you can see it from there, but we're staying steady at 14.26 or 14.27. He told me that I'm assuming this will just continue to charge like this, and he said, of course you wouldn't want to do this, but you could literally do that every time you started this tractor. If you couldn't find the problem, you could activate. And I want you to look at something here. We've not yet had 14 volts on this reading, and now we have it because that alternator is doing its job. So the goal now is to track down a possible bad fuse. The question is, why is the fuse bad? I mean, fuses go bad, but a lot of times there's a reason for it. So I hope it's not a mouse that's chewed part way through a wire, but I'm excited we've gotten to this point. What I was saying earlier is we should always try to fix our own stuff if at all possible, because you never know when you're going to need to have some knowledge. And you know, I know that I don't know much at all, but I know that I'm willing to try and I'm willing to learn. So that's the key. Okay, y'all want to hear something crazy? Maybe it's me. Maybe you already heard something crazy during this whole video and it was me, but I don't think I'm crazy. But here's what I just did. I shut the tractor off after jumping it, you know, and kind of kicking that alternator in. And then I thought, I want to test it one more time. It wasn't on camera. I want to test it one more time, cranking the tractor, not jumping the alternator, and just see what kind of volts I get. I should read 0 again, but guess what? I just read 14 point whatever after not jumping it. So now I'm thoroughly confused. Did the alternator need some activity and now it's working? I mean, I'm a little lost on this. Did I have it grounded out properly on my first test? I think I did. I moved it around. It's charging. That's all I know. It's starting and it's charging. I'm gonna look for the fuse. I'm gonna check it to make sure that we're good to go. But at the moment, we don't have a problem, which is really weird. I'm used to problems, and I really don't think I'm out of the woods yet. No pun intended. But we're gonna keep trying. So I just looked in the manual. I didn't, the fuse for the alternator, it didn't jump out at me. I'm not finding it, so I'll research that a little later. Right now we got a working tractor, and I can't explain it. After talking to my alternator guy, the fellow who rebuilds them, who told me to jump this, he told me the only thing he can think of is that we probably had a stuck relay. And so by jumping it, that relay popped closed, did what it's supposed to do, and it's no longer stuck. Not for sure about that, but that's a possibility. But just a little disclaimer, everything that I did, I'm not telling you to do it. I don't know that it's right. I don't know if it can cause damage, but seems to have worked for us. I would love any comments that are constructive and maybe could teach us a few things, teach me a few things anyway, and maybe a few other people who might be a little like me and need some of that information. But I think I'm just gonna cross my fingers and say this tractor is working, it's fixed, it's ready to go. But for the remainder of the evening, I don't have time to get to work down there in the field moving trees and stuff. But what I want to do, and what I did today, is I brought my trailer with my bad boy, and we're gonna take this thing. This is the ZT Elite, and we're gonna just mow this grass right here, blow those leaves off of this, so as spring comes along, it's gonna be able to grow a little bit better. And I'm gonna run it down by the driveway and take this, I'm missing my E on my Elite. Take this thing and we're gonna hit each side of the driveway and just clean it up. I'm not gonna put that on here though. I just wanna say thanks for sticking around. If you stuck around with me this long, you're a patriot, I tell you. And I appreciate it. Thanks for coming to the lovely place. We're hoping to survive, make this place a homestead, and we're hoping to, and you see the hood raised on the GMC. I tested that the battery loader on that, the battery load device tester on that, just to make sure it was working on that as well, and just compare the results. So anyway, again, thanks for coming along today. I hope that this was entertaining at the very least. You guys take care. We'll see you next time, and God bless you.